Okay, so it's Kendall again. If you guys have made it this far, that means, look, you've gone through, you've gotten the information you needed, and you're to the point where I was. When I got this far in the process, I was like, look, I'm in. You could have shut up a long time ago. Just help me find the funding. Like, I'm in. I'm going to do this. This makes total sense. I want to save money on taxes. I want to learn how to raise money from retirement plans. I want to pay off my house quicker. Whatever the process is, you're like, look, you could have shut up. Let's just get started. Well, that's typically where people find themselves. They're like, I'm in. Just help me get the funding. Now, I remember that's where I was. And my enroller's name was Justin. And he said, if I can find you the money, are you ready to get started? I'm like, yeah, I'm in. Because I thought there's no way. Like, he doesn't know my yeah, but story. Yeah, but Justin, you don't know my story. You don't know that I have no money. You don't know that I have no credit. And he said, Kendall, it doesn't matter. If I find you the money, are you in? And when he paused and looked at me right in my eyes, I'm like, I think so. Like, there was some hesitancy because he was committed. He knew that he was going to find me the funds. I didn't think there was any possible way. So in this video, we're just here to explore. We're here to explore. I'm going to share with you some of the stories of some of our students and how they chose to get started. And what I want you to do is just step into the situation, evaluate for yourself, and you determine, would any of these work for you? The reality is, every single one of you watching this right now, we're going to be able to get you started. Now, you might have to come to the table with some skin in the game, but we're going to be able to get you started. So bear with me. Let's go to the iPad. You guys know the drill by now. If you've seen this, you've seen this a few times. So let's get the iPad up and running. And I'm going to share with you over 14 different ways of finding the capital, how students have been able to get their funding put together so they too could move forward on their journey. Now, the first one we're going to talk about is simply checking and savings. And I know you guys are saying, well, Kendall, if I had money in checking and savings, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here having this conversation. But you know, this is a great resource. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to use it to fund your education, but you should at least explore what's there. You've got to get very real. Get real with where you are today so that we can help you to move forward. Well, I was talking about this with one of my students. Her name was Raylene, and she's like, yeah, I'll just cut you a check. And she pulled out her checkbook right then and there and cut a check. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. I can't take personal checks. It has to be a wire transfer or an official check. So she went down and converted it to a wire transfer, sent the money in. It was awesome, but she just looked right within her checking and savings account. Now, other students, another guy, one of my guys down in San Diego, his name's Chris. And I almost wrote his name. Do you see that? Chris. Well, I don't need to write his name. That's not what we're talking about. He had money off of his home equity line of credit. Now, when I speak of a home equity line of credit, there's many lines of credit. This could be a HELOC. It could be a personal line of credit. It could be a business line of credit. Suffice it to say, this right here is line of credit. Yes, we're clear on that? So many different types of line of credit. Chris looked into his. He said, you know, that's going to be a great resource for me to pull from. And he just pulled it out directly from his line. Now, we go into these next two are very similar, a 401k or an IRA. Now, a 401k is interesting. If you're currently employed with your employer, you can actually borrow against your own 401k. One of my students, Oscar, this is what he did. He had money in his 401k, he had a couple $100,000 there, and he was able to borrow up to 50% of whatever was in his plan, not to exceed $50,000. Well, not 50,000K, that's a lot. Let's back that off a little bit. Not to exceed $50,000. So Oscar, this is the route he went. He said, look, if I'm going to be borrowing money from anybody, anywhere, I may as well pull it and pay myself back with interest. And the way he did that, the way he functioned and managed his payments, is it was just payroll or that's right, payroll withholdings. Every single time he got a paycheck, they would just deduct from that, and they would go back to pay back his 401k loan. Now, Will, he had money in an IRA. And with an IRA, you can't borrow from an IRA, but you can make a choice, right? So many people are like, oh, IRA, it's going to be taxed or penalized. And sometimes that's true. Sometimes it could be. But you can look at it as, look, it's just a fee. What's your money doing? What is it earning you? And do you see a greater opportunity here? If so, could that be an option? Yes. I'm not here to make that decision for you. I just want to share with you what Will did. Will said, no, that totally makes sense. I'm going to use my IRA. Now, Ray, he looked at his existing credit cards and he started sharing with me. He's like, look, I've got a number of different credit cards. I think that's a great way. So I simply asked him, I said, well, are any of them 0%? He's like, I don't think so. So I told him what I had done with one of my cards, which when I was about to make a large purchase, I called him up and said, hey, I'm about to make a large purchase. Could you change it to 0%? One of my cards told me no. The other one said, yeah, you know what? You've got a good history with us. We can do that. So credit cards are existing options, and some of our students I've watched that literally they have multiple credit cards and they put them on different ones. But I always do recommend try to get the best interest rate possible. Go make sure you run the numbers. Run the numbers so that you're not putting yourself in a bad financial position. We definitely don't want to do that. Okay. This one was new to me when I first learned about it. This was years ago, and this was a life insurance policy where as I went through these different ways of funding, the guy I was sitting with, his name was Don, and he's like, yeah, none of those work for me, Kendall. None of them work. And we get down to life insurance, and he said, what kind of life insurance? I said, well, it's got to be whole life insurance. It can't be the term life insurance. It's got to be whole, have some cash value. And he's like, yeah, I've got a life insurance policy I've been paying into for years. Sure enough, he looked into it, and he had $60,000 that he could pull from his account. So he found his money through a life insurance policy. That may work for you. It may not. Other people have come on board and they say, you know what? I have other investments. I have other investments that aren't really working for me. Joe, this is what Joe did. He had some investments and he's like, look, I'm only getting a 2 or 3 or 4% return. I believe that money is better spent in me getting access to the educational services and being able to learn this stuff. Because his belief was that if he had access to the same systems that I did, that he could go create the same results. And I said, right on, man. Sold his other investments, decided to get started, paid for his education that way. Apparently, I'm stumbling a little bit. You guys hear that stutter? Love it. Gotta love that stutter. Okay, let's go to number 9. Okay, title loans. Now, this one is a little interesting. Now, this isn't exactly what you're thinking of, but I don't know what else to call it. One of my buddies, his name's Chris. He's an electrician. And Chris is like, Kendall, none of those work for me. He was in a financial situation. Things had been pretty rough. And he's like, I don't have any of that. And I said, well, what do you have? What do you have that you might have access to? He says, well, my car's paid for. I said, really? Your car's paid for? Well, I wonder what you could do there. What options could we do with a pink slip? And he's like, well, maybe I could get a title loan. But title loans in the terms of, go down to the bright yellow signs that say title loans. Have you ever been to those places? Yeah, they'll take your pink slip, but they'll charge you a fortune in interest. And that didn't really make sense. That was going to be almost usury interest rates, and it didn't make sense. So we brainstormed, and he came up with the idea, I wonder if I could go to the bank and buy my car back from myself. I said, I like it. Try it. So he went to Wells Fargo, and he said, look, I'd like to buy a car. And he literally bought his car from himself. He gave them the pink slip. They gave him the check, and he was then able to put that into his checking account, send it over, wired it, and was able to take his car. And now his payment, he was able to structure it. So his payment was only like $185 a month. And he was able to fund it that way over an extended period of time. That worked for him. It may work for you, may not. Another option along that arena is what we call signature loans. Many students have been able to go down to the banks and go in and talk with their different lenders and say, hey, look, I've got a good job. Can I get an unsecured signature loan? And that option has worked for them. Again, just explore what's out there. If you've got decent credit, that might work for you as well. This one, love money. Now, this isn't what you think, right? This is simply going to those that love you and support you and saying, hey, look, I need help. I need help getting this started and put together a business plan. Here's my model. Here's what I'm doing. This is how I anticipate paying this back. And in many cases with the love money scenario, what they've chosen to do is they actually partner up with the person who helps them get funding. Because within our system, it's lifetime access and it's available for 2 people. So imagine going to a family member or a friend, and I had a buddy that did this, and he went to his family member and he said, hey, look, I'm thinking of buying this education, but I don't have the credit worthiness to do this. If you put up the credit, I'll make the payments and I'll make you a partner. Okay? And so for Tim and Fred, that was a fantastic, fantastic relationship. They were able to put up the money, one paid the credit, the other one made the payment. Tim and Fred were able to come in, partner up on the education, and through love money, that's how they funded their deals. Okay? The other things here is we can look into new credit cards. Now, be careful with this. I'm not saying go out there and just become a credit wizard and go figure this stuff out. Get some help here. get some help. There's some great resources. And one of those resources is, what if we could peek behind the curtain, right? What if we could do a soft credit pull? And what if there was an opportunity before you applied, if you were able to peek behind the curtain and see how your credit worthiness was? Before you ever make an application, just see, hey, what are the chances that I might be able to qualify? We've got great services that are able to do that for you, okay? And it's not affiliated with us. That's just part of the program, that you can get in there, do a soft credit pull, just peek behind the curtain, and before you make that decision and get a hard inquiry on your credit, you'll know where you stand. And then the last one, number 14, we have in-house billing, okay? In-house billing is just that. If you can come up with a portion of the payment. Now, it really depends on where you're going to get started. If you're going to get started at the intro package, or if you're going to go all in like I did, you're looking at anywhere from $400 to $4,000 down. Now, sometimes people are like, well, yeah, but I don't even have that. Well, here's the thing. When you don't have the resources, be resourceful. I literally sat down with a gentleman today and we talked about his situation. And he was from the excavation business. Okay, he had a couple of big pieces of equipment, big bulldozers and tractors. And literally they were sitting there doing nothing. And just through having conversations, he's like, man, I could rent those things out. If I got them up and running again, which was going to cost him about $1,000 bucks. But if he put $1,000 into them to get them running, he could rent these 2 pieces of equipment out for $700 a day. Here's a guy that came to me and he says, you don't understand. Look, I can't rub 2 nickels together. There's no way I can do this. But it's all about asking the right question. And what we discovered and what he discovered is he actually has these assets on the side that he can use to create income. And he was able to create for himself the possibility of, wait a minute, I can fix my tractors, I can lease those out, I can get the down payment, and I can go all in. Now, this isn't a full exhaustive review of different ways of finding funding, but many of you by this point, you're like, okay, yep, I can do that. Maybe it's a combination. I've literally had students that come in, do a little bit of both. They pull some money from their checking account. They pull money from different lines of credit. They pull money from their life insurance policy, because they started to realize that it didn't matter how they got in. They just needed to get in. You see, I'm not here to make your decision. I'm just here to collect it. I'm just here to guide you through conversations to see ultimately how can you get started. We want you to get started. We want you to have the same success we've had. However, we can't serve you until we sell you. We got to get you in. We can't give you full access to the kingdom, if you will, full access to our community until you're in. So hopefully this has been helpful. Hopefully we've gone over 14 different ways. Hey, if nothing else, you know full well that we got you started right here. Find a way to come up with the money, even if you have to scrimp and save. Is it worth it? Oh my goodness, from one who knows, it's very worth it. But again, I'm not here to make your decision. I'm just here to collect it. Hopefully this has been helpful. Thank you for spending time with me on these videos. Look forward to talking to you soon.